we're going to talk about pigs today. So, first and foremost, I'm going to cover a few tools and just some background information. And then we've got 7 friendly little pigs here that you can hear that we're going to get in the pen with and do a few things with, and we'll kind of go from there. So first and foremost, when we're moving pigs around or anytime we're working with pigs, we need to have a few tools. Hands are great. You don't want to get hands smashed or get hands dirty half the time. So we have a few other tools and equipment to use. Now this is regardless of if they're show pigs or just regular old feed floor pigs. This would just be a plastic PVC pipe is all this is. We're simply going to call it a pipe. So this would be a tool that we can use to move pigs, the same as this whip. Okay, now this obviously isn't Indiana Jones kind of whip. So if I fling this around, it's not going to make any noise, okay? But this would just be a short whip we can also use to move them. Now these things work great if the pigs have been trained from a small age to use these. If the pigs have never been trained to use these, sometimes they're kind of a pain in the butt. In this case, they've sort of had them used, sort of not. So these aren't particularly show pigs. They were pigs that were purchased to be show pigs, but then coronavirus, they didn't really get shown at all. So they've not really ever been worked with. At this point, they're just regular old market hogs. Okay? So we're going to kind of treat them as such, and obviously they don't look like show pigs at this point in time. But these are 2 pig driving or pig moving tools that we can use, pipe and a whip, and we'll show you a little bit more on how to use those when we actually hop in the pen with these things. Another tool that we can use, you can see we have one in plastic and also one in metal. If you have just a sawed-off piece of board, Ava, control your pigs. I have 2 high school assistants helping me today. So if I'm yelling, it's at them, not the pigs, just for clarity. Anyhow, we have 2 boards here, and you can also just use a regular sawed-off piece of board as well. But the boards are called different things. You can either just call it a board, which is fine. You can call it a sort board, which is typically what like my grandpa would call it. You can call it a panel, which is typically what I call it or my dad would call it. Or as Mr. Paul, one of the other high school ag teachers, would call it a hurdle. Panel, hurdle, sort board, doesn't matter, same thing. It can be made of plastic, it can be made of metal, it can be made of wood. It doesn't matter. The point is, it's a solid barrier, solid object that the pigs cannot see through. Pigs are a lot more likely to respect this solid barrier, as Temple Grandin, the animal moving expert, would say, than something that's got holes in it. So, in order to use this, basically we're pushing the pig with it, and again, I'll demonstrate how to use this in a little bit. But that's what that is, hurdle, sort board, whatever you want to call it. Another tool that we have, and I don't know if I'll actually demonstrate how to use this, is Swine Shot. This is basically spray paint for pigs. As you can see, this is a fabulous purple color. Go Muskies purple. It doesn't say that, I should write it with a marker. But anyhow, this would be to use to mark for pigs if something got sick and needed a shot, if we were going to sort them out for anything, or if I just simply wanted to graffiti a pig, this is what that's used for. Or you can also get the short livestock marker chalks. That works too. It's a little harder to get to because you have to be closer to the animal to put it on, and it smears a lot more. It's kind of like a giant tube of lipstick that gets rubbed all over everything. Compared to this is spray paint, it dries a lot faster. There's other methods of marking pigs too. So that would be kind of a temporary ID. There's a couple forms of more permanent ID that we use for pigs. We don't brand pigs like we do sometimes cattle or other animals. We don't really tattoo them except for when they're like getting on the truck for market. But that's kind of a completely different concept. We'll probably talk about that another time. Pigs can get ear tags. The problem with giving pigs ear tags is they're very curious animals, which you'll find out here in just a second. They love to chew on stuff. A lot of times those ear tags will get chewed on, and as the pigs are moving, those tags will get ripped out of their ears. So ear tags aren't exactly a great method of ID for pigs. The best is, and kind of the most universal form that we use, at least here in the United States, is ear notching. So with ear notches, and we'll zoom in on these guys here and see it in just a second, we're just cutting little bits of triangle out of their ears when they're little babies. It only hurts for a couple seconds and it's completely over with. But each notch on the ear, each specific area of the ear, represents something different. Want to zoom in on that maybe? So, as we're looking at the pig, we're always going with the animal's physical right and physical left ear. So if I'm looking at the pig from behind, this would be the animal's physical right ear. The right ear represents the litter notch. So a litter of pigs is a group of pigs born from the same mom at the same time. Okay? So like when a human has children and she has 2, we call it twins. 3, we call it triplets. 4, we call it quads. That's a lot, etc. We call this a litter when they have a group at the same time, okay? Hopefully we have large litters, not small litters, but we'll kind of see what we get. Anyhow, their physical right ear, the pig's right ear, is their litter number. So in the human world, that's the equivalent of it being our last name. We usually read that first, okay? The other ear, the pig's left ear, would be their individual number. So that would be like their first name, okay? So first name ever, last name greatest, haha, you get the point. Anyway, each section of the ear represents a different number that go in multiples of 3. So if you're notching it down here in the bottom section of the ear closest to their neck, that is a 1. You may have 2 notches in each section, so I've drawn out the equivalent of all the notches on this paper for you to see. The next section up on the ear going around towards the tip on the bottom side would be 3. Then we skip the tip and go up to the top section here would be 9. If we go over closer to the head on the top side, it's 27. And then back over to the ear is 81. Sometimes you'll have some people that will say if they get a hole punched in the middle of their ear, it represents 100. But some people say, well, that's not exactly great because if they had an ear tag that fell out, that could look like 100. Most people don't always go with that, and it's not often you're going to see 100 litters of pigs notched in one season, but it can happen if somebody has a very large farm and they're raising a lot of pigs that are notched. Most of our pigs that go into our food production do not have ear notches in. They're just running around with not really a whole lot for ID purposes. Show pigs are always notched, okay? And the individual side of the ears is the same thing. 1, 3, 9, 27, 81. They're multiples of 3, so you may have 2 notches before all of a sudden, oh look, 1, 2. It's kind of dumb to put 3 notches a ear down here when you can bump up to a 3. It's kind of dumb to put 3 notches in the ear here when you can bump up to a 9. If you have multiples of 3, you can represent every single notch, every single number on this pig. So some notches may get very hard and complex to read. If you had like a, let's say 61-7, that would be a lot of notches put into the pig's ear. Some of them are really easy. If it was a 1-1 or 3-1, you get the point. We'll look at what these actually look like in the pig's ear in just a second. Other things that we've got about the pigs is kind of what they eat. Like we said, these pigs were originally going to be show pigs, and now they're just waiting to go to market, which is where all of your show pigs end up anyway, unless they go back into the breeding cycle. And zoom in on this here. So this is an example of what our pigs eat. Most pigs eat ground feed, which looks kind of like this. And this is basically just ground up corn, ground up soybeans, and sometimes we add a few different things into it just to kind of help them with their nutrition. One thing that's added to most swine diets is called lysine. Lysine is an amino acid which helps in building protein, and it's the limiting factor in pig diets. So lysine is a lot of times added. Otherwise, this is basically just ground up corn and soybeans is what this looks like. The pigs love it. So we're gonna hop in our pen with our pigs. I've got my tools to kind of demonstrate how they're used. Pigs are extremely curious animals. They explore the world around them mostly by smell and by taste. So as you can see, when I crawl in here, they're probably going to want to chew on my boots. They're probably going to want to chew on my pants. And I'm kind of dressed for the occasion. I got my boots on. I've got my jeans on. We have 7 pigs in this pen, and I'll kind of explain the differences in colors and breeds and things here in a second. So, crawl in with our pigs. I broke the cardinal rule of livestock. I did not close the gate behind me, but there were 2 people behind me. So if you're like, oh, she didn't close the gate. Actually, I didn't have to because I had people behind me and I knew they were going to close the gate. So as you can see, I hopped in here and these pigs are very curious right away. They're trying to kind of nibble on the board, trying to taste it, trying to kind of see what it's like. So I'm going to demonstrate my tools quick first so I can get those out of the way, and then we'll kind of go from there. So if I'm going to, move the pigs using a sort board, let's say I want to move this pig here and I want to take it to the back of the pen. I'm going to take the board and I'm going to kind of get behind the pig. If I want it to go forward, I'm going to either push on the side of its head or I can tap it on the side of its body. My goal is to keep it moving in the direction that I want it to go in. It's kind of like playing defense in a sport. You have to think about where the animal is going to go and try to beat it to that spot. Animals' point of balance is the middle of their back. If I want the animal to move forward, I need to stand behind the point of balance. If I want the pig to back up, I need to stand in front of their point of balance. If I want to turn this pig using my sort board, I'm going to take and I'm going to push it on the side of its face to get it to turn. The best place to turn a pig is by the side of its head. Now you'll notice I didn't have to get real rough or real aggressive. If I want to turn this guy that way, I'm just going to push on the side of its face. Now sometimes pigs are stubborn and they don't listen, and you do have to get a little more aggressive. Okay? So if they don't want to walk, you can take it, kind of jab it into their side, or what you might have to do if it's not going forward and you want it to go forward, is just give it a little booty bump to get it to move ahead. It's like hitting the gas pedal. I'm not singing any songs about that. Anyhow, some of you got that reference. The other one to use, my camera people are laughing. You're going to be shaking up and down watching now. Sorry about that, folks. Anyhow, the other two methods of moving, we've got our pipe and our whip. We use this the exact same way, but I'll show you both, just so you can see both. If I want this animal to move, let's say I'm going to move this pig that way. If I want it to simply move forward, I'm going to tap him on the side. If it doesn't go, I'm going to tap him a little bit harder. Typically, if you look over here, he's being Mr. Itchy Scratchy, and it's making a lot of noise. So if I wanted to move that pig, I'm just going to use my whip kind of on the side of it. So if I want the animal to move forward, I'm going to stand behind the point of balance, behind the mid portion of them. I'm going to tap it on its side to get it to go forward. Like I said, these pigs aren't whip and pipe trained, so they may or may not participate very well here. Kind of like middle schoolers. Sometimes they do or do not participate well. Anyway, so if I want them to go forward, I'm going to tap them on the side. Typically, we don't hit pigs on their top, and we don't hit them on their butt, because this is where the more important cuts of meat are, and we wouldn't want to accidentally bruise those. And so we typically try to stick to the sides where we'll worry about it less. Now, if we're tapping them properly and if we've worked with our pigs enough that they can move well, we shouldn't have to hit them hard enough that we're going to be bruising anything anyway. Okay? If I'm taking this thing and just whacking the ever-living daylights out of stuff, one, either my animals aren't trained, or two, I'm probably not in a good mood to be moving animals around, and probably should not have access to this in the first place. Okay? Pigs are curious, they'll see who kind of wants to chew on that. We like to get pigs' heads up, especially in the show ring, to watch them move. But anyway, if I wanted to go forward, I'm going to tap on the side of it, okay? Or I can kind of tap up by their face. If I want to turn the pig, I want to turn this white pig this direction. I'm going to tap on the opposite side of the face that I want him to go. Now, it's not very nice of me to try to turn him into the fence. So if I'm going to catch him out here, maybe not, I'm going to turn this pig that way, okay? I'm going to tap him on the opposite side of his face until he turns. If he's not turning, I can either flip my whip around to use a sturdier end, or I can get down with my hand and use my hand to push his face over. Because pigs respect a solid barrier. Mr. Itchy Scratchy. Sometimes you can make little sounds too. I make a lot of sounds when I'm moving pigs. Sometimes they're not very nice. So we'll get this guy to move again. We'll kind of see what this looks like. Again, to move forward. I want to turn him before he gets to his feet hand, so I'm going to jump in front of him and use my whip to turn, or if he's not going, I'm going to use my hand on the side of his face and watch him take off while I'm all covered in mud. Yeah, you'll notice this pig pen's kind of sloppy. And as you can see here, prime example of this pig rolling around in this. Pigs can't sweat, which is why they like to roll in the mud. And in this case, it's basically water, okay? But these pigs, their water has not been working overly great, and they know it's not working overly great, so they've literally been crawling into this even though we have a cover on the top. They're spilling the water so that they can roll in it. Now, it's probably 74 degrees out here right now, so it's not hot, but these pigs are currently weighing about 60 to 70 pounds. So they're market size right now. They're actually going to market here in about a week and a half. They're still here basically for us to use for class purposes. But these guys are rolling around to help themselves cool off. They've been up and moving around. I'm starting to get to the point I'm almost a tad sweaty. So these guys are enjoying cooling off because they can't sweat. When humans sweat, our sweat evaporates off our skin, and that's actually the process that cools us down. Pigs don't have that luxury, so in order for them to cool down, they have to roll in some kind of liquid. Now you'll notice though, they keep all their wet mess over there, and they kind of have a dry section here. This is where they lay. So pigs are actually pretty good about having an area that they poop in, as you can see back in this corner. This is their poop corner. They have an area that they like to roll in, as you can see over here where it's all wet, and then they have an area they like to sleep in, which is this dry area right here. So believe it or not, pigs are actually fairly clean animals. Not that they look like it right now, because they've all been rolling. But they do actually a fairly decent job of trying to keep themselves clean, okay? We have a couple of different colors of pigs represented here. This guy would be what we call white. There's no such thing as a pink pig. Sorry to bust your bubble, all those of you who have seen all these, animated books and TV shows and films, all the pigs are always pink colored. I don't know why. Pigs are technically white, okay? Now, sometimes they can get a pink glow to them if they've been freshly washed or their skin has been rubbed. Just because that's, what happens when you get blood moving to the area. But these guys are actually white. Now, some of these guys, there's one that's completely or solid black, which is that guy who just flopped over and is kind of rolling right now. Look at that pig roll. Not an egg roll, it's a pig roll. Maybe it could be an egg roll later, I don't know. But anyway, not a jelly roll, egg roll. Anyway, some of these guys here are black with white markings on them. These are actually Berkshire hogs, is the breed, Berkshire. So there are 5 of those, and there are 2 crossbreds. So the crossbreds would be a mix of different breeds, which is this white pig here and the solid black one, or I guess he's got some white on his foot, almost solid black one right in here. But you can see different breeds, just different colors, different ways in which their body is kind of put together. A breed in the animal world is kind of like a race, basically, for humans. It's all the same inside, just looks maybe a little different on the outside. So that's what we got here. If we zoom in on some of our pig ears here, let's take this white pig maybe if we can get close to him. You can see they do have ear tags in them. Most of them do. A couple of their ear tags have come out already. And you can kind of see on the outside part where their ear notches are. So this ear right here would be the pig's right ear. And you can see it's got a notch down here that is a 1. Okay? If we look at the pig's other ear, this would be the pig's left ear. Did I say right ear? I'm sorry, I don't want to confuse anybody. So this is the pig's left ear right here. This would be its individual number. So this pig's individual number is a 1, okay? If we can, I don't know if our camera's going to get to the other side, look at that pig's litter number in the right ear. You can see we've got a bunch of different notches. We'll try to get his head up a little bit more here. So you can see we have a 1, a 1, a 3, a 3, and a 9. So if we add all these notches up together, 9 plus 3 would be 12, plus 3 more would be 15, plus 1 is 16, plus 1 is 17. So this pig's number is 17-1. Hopefully I didn't miss any notches and make myself look dumb with that, but this pig, that's what this pig's notch should be. Hopefully we get kind of a zoomed in look at it here.
We got a good view.
To give you another example of some ear notches, let's maybe find one that's easier or different to read. Here's one that's a little different. So this Berkshire pig here, so looking from behind, this by the end of my whip, right here should be its right ear, which would be its litter notch. That ear over there should be its individual number, which is his left ear. So in his right ear here, we have a 27 and another 27. So 27 and 27 should be 54. Plus we've got a 9, so 54 plus 9 would be 63. And then behind me is getting me. Where was I at? 54, 63, and then we've got a 1, so 64. And then in his other ear over here, you'll see he's got a hole in the ear, but he's missing his tag. That's not actually 100. He's got a 3 right up in here. So this pig's number is, what I say, 64? Is that what I said? -3? I don't even remember.
63 or 64.
Go back and check my math. But anyway, you can see some of the difference in the pig's notch. Now, if we're showing pigs, one of the things that we're going to try to do is keep them moving the whole time so the judge can see what they look like. Our goal is to try to get the pigs to walk and stay out of the corner, stay in the middle of the ring about 10 feet in front of the judge, and to try to keep their head up almost kind of like that. That's something that the only way that works is by working with your pigs and training them to walk every day. Like we said, these pigs originally were supposed to be show pigs, but they haven't really been worked with. So they know a little bit enough to walk away from the whip or walk away from the pipe. I never did demonstrate with the pipe, but it's the same basically as a whip. I prefer a whip, personally. Other things we need to know. So we said these pigs are about 260 or 270 pounds. They are about 5 or 6 months old, and they are getting ready to go to market. So even though 6 months old sounds really short in the grand scheme of things, that's not too bad in a pig's life cycle. So a pig's life cycle is obviously a lot different than humans. In a human world, when we're 6 months old, we're sitting up, smiling, and basically pooping, burping, and farting. That's pretty much about it. In the pig's world at 6 months old, they're basically ready to go on to their next step of life, whether that's going to market or getting put into a breeding program. Basically, they're two options. These pigs here are all going to end up at market. There are a few males and there are a few females here in the bunch, and I'll kind of explain that here in a little bit. But at 6 months old, they're pretty much their market size or their size of when they're ready to go on. Those two are obviously having a little party in the back. Pigs will kind of fight with each other. In the case of these guys, they're basically just playing because they need something else to do. And they feel good. It's not too cold, it's not too hot. It finally quit raining. Sneaking up behind me here and spraying me with water here. So they're just kind of hanging out. Now, males and females, we kind of mentioned that here. There is, I believe, one, maybe two gilts in here. So a gilt, G-I-L-T is how you spell it. A gilt would be a female that has not had babies yet. We'll see if we can track one down. I know there's at least one.
It's over there.
There she is. Okay, so a gilt or a female. If we look down here underneath her tail, this is her vulva or her girl part right there for external girl characteristics. If we look under her body, she does not have a sheath, but you can see obviously she has a row of teats down or nipples on either side of her belly. Obviously, that's not going to tell the difference between the males and females, because if you look at this guy right here, this is a barrow. A barrow is a castrated male pig. Castrated meaning he doesn't have testicles, he cannot breed. So if we look, he obviously still has a row of nipples on each side too, so that's not going to help us out any. But you'll see when you look down here, he has a sheath. This is where he pees from, so this would be his male external anatomy right here, his male boy part. And if you're like a little kid and you're learning to tell the differences, B for boy, B for belly buttons. Not actually belly button, but it might help you remember. Then if we look back here, go buddy. If we look back here underneath his tail, you can see it's smooth because he doesn't have a vulva because his boy parts are down here. So, hopefully that will help you kind of look at the differences here. So a sow would be a mature female that's had babies already. Sow is S-O-W, so it looks like so, but it's pronounced sow. And a boar, B-O-A-R, that would be a male pig that we can use for breeding, so he does still have his testicles. So that's kind of some of the differences as far as that goes. Some other things about the pigs, we talked about how they can't sweat. We talked about how they're pretty smart animals actually. They have a good sense of smell, good sense of taste. You'll notice with these pigs, pigtails are something that gets brought up a lot, okay? These guys here, their tail is fairly long. It hasn't been clipped real short. In most barns you go into that are pigs just for eating purposes, their tails are going to be clipped pretty short. The reason is because, like we said, pigs are curious. They like to taste things, they like to smell things, they like to chew on things. If pigs chew on each other's tails, a lot of times it will end up bleeding. Pigs are actually omnivores, which means they can consume both plants and meat. Now, most pigs are technically herbivores because we only feed them corn and soybeans. However, they technically are omnivores, and their digestive system, for the most part, isn't terribly different than ours. So theoretically, they can consume meat products. Now, if they get the taste of blood in their mouth, they can continue to go after that, and they can actually turn cannibalistic and decide that they're going to basically eat the other pig's tail completely. So if that's the case, they can paralyze them, they can make them sick, the other pig can get an infection. Obviously, that's not good. So if we have barns where there's a lot of pigs, for their safety, we will clip their tails really short when they're babies. Obviously not when they're big, but when they're really little. It doesn't, we might have sheep crashing the party here in a second. It doesn't really hurt, they get over it really quickly. These pigs, since they were designed to be show pigs, their tail's not clipped super short, but it has actually had part of it clipped off. Otherwise, it would curl around just a little bit more. I don't think of what else we need to discuss about the pigs. What else did I forget?
Maybe like market and breeding.
Oh, market and breeding. So like we talked about, these pigs here are going to be used basically just for market purposes. So we're looking at what's the ratio of muscle to fat. Average market pig weight is about 250 pounds. Depends on exactly how they're being marketed and who's selling them, but pigs can be marketed anywhere from about 225 up to over 300 pounds. Kind of the weight we shoot for is about that 260, 250 range. So these pigs here are about market weight. The goal is for them to have enough fat that they're not going to look skinny. So these pigs are pretty good in terms of fat. They're not chubby to where they wiggle everywhere. We can tell how fat a pig is by looking kind of right down here in their jowl under their chin. We can look right behind their shoulder blade, kind of down in their armpit down here. We can look at fat by how deep and soggy their belly looks. We can look at fat over the middle part of their back. If the widest part of their back, if the widest part of their body is the middle of their back, they're kind of fat. So if they're shaped like a canoe, that's not necessarily a good sign. And then we can also look at fat down. Tasty. We can also look at fat down here under their ham seam, or kind of between, right back between their bottom legs here. Muscle is obviously going to be the big thing we're looking for in pigs, and so I need a shower. Pigs, biosecurity. Most of the time when you're working around pigs, if it's a big barn, you're going to do what's called shower in, shower out, which means they'll have an area for you to take a shower before you go see the pigs. And the reason is to help control biosecurity, help control germs, so we're not spreading things back and forth. Most pigs, especially here in the Midwest, or especially for the most part in the U.S., are raised in large confinement barns. So confinement meaning they're inside and they don't get outside much at all. The reason for that is, especially like Iowa, this time of the year is not so bad to have pigs outside. But if you think of what Iowa's like in the middle of the winter time, or sometimes in the middle of summer when it's extremely hot and humid, it's not exactly great to be raising pigs out in that environment. So to help them stay more comfortable and to help raise them a little bit faster and a little more sustainably, we've moved them inside of all these barns, which is great. The problem with that is these pigs are in a little bit closer and more confined quarters, kind of like humans during coronavirus. Everybody's inside. Our immune system maybe isn't necessarily as boosted. We're all breathing the same air. It's a good way to spread germs. Same thing with these pigs all inside of one building together, is if one pig gets sick, there's a pretty good chance most of them are going to get sick. And so we try to control germs by doing good biosecurity measures. Shower in, shower out. We spray things down. We wash our boots. I have a pair of boots that I wear just at the Ag Center that doesn't go, or just around our pigs, that doesn't go anywhere else. I'm careful about if I've seen these pigs not going to anybody else's farm that has pigs for a while, just to try to control the spread of germs and bacteria and things like that. But anyway, back to our looking at our pigs here. So we look at muscle on pigs down their back. So we start from the ground up. If the pig is wide, like meaning width between its front legs, width between its back legs, width between its knees and its shoulders, all the way from the ground up, that gives that pig more space to have muscle down its back, and it's also built more comfortably. So it can actually get around and move a little better if the pig is wider. So we look at muscle down its back. So this is actually where your pork chops, your pork loin and everything comes from, right back here. The pig's rib cage, so kind of your short ribs, spare ribs would be down in here. Backing this area here is the pig's hip, which is connected down here to the ham. So that is actually where your ham comes from. Bacon would be down here along the belly, or pork belly. It's essentially bacon, right? When we cure it, then we call it bacon usually. Most of your roasts will come out of here right in the shoulder. So if you talk about pork butt, it's not actually the butt, it's actually part of the shoulder. So the boston butt, pork butt, picnic shoulder, all those things, that's where those are located. So those are kind of some of the main things of where you get pork sausage. And ground pork is the leftover chunks of muscle after we've cut out the big things, leftover pieces of muscle that we'll take and grind with a little bit of fat, so we can still have some kind of a usable product. So those are kind of some of the basics on our pigs, and as you can see, you got a good shot of these guys kind of running around just enjoying their life as not show pigs that are not in a big confinement barn. But hopefully you've learned a little bit of something. They're currently attacking my pipe. I'm going to have to go clean that up and maybe go take a shower. So, that was a lovely body shot we got there. Anyway, if you have any questions, be sure to reach out and ask. Otherwise, we'll catch you later.